digital approach. The first bill I want to bring forward you today is House Bill 152. House Bill 152 comes to us, and I have a proposed committee sub to that bill. It comes to us from Becky Curry, and the lady from Lincoln has suggested that we use the lottery as a vehicle to help supplement some of our deferred maintenance in our state parks. We've taken that bill and we've modeled it to what our specific need is. So what this bill does, this bill will attach $3.5 million of the existing lottery money, transportation, and we will redirect that in monthly installments to the Department of Wildlife, Fisheries, and Parks for deferred maintenance program. As many of you know, we have 85 miles of roads and bridges in our state parks. And we have no plan or no deferred maintenance program to deal with that. Now, this money was directed in our special session to address roads and bridges, and I think we've done a wonderful job. I think we've come in above expectations on our lottery money. I think this is a very good example of how that money can work for the public good. So what I'm asking to do is we're going to take 3.5 and redirect that into the wildlife deferred maintenance program. Now, I understand that, I'm not crazy about opening code sections on lottery. We've got to keep that at a minimum, but I think this is very applicable to the need. This is new money, and as we start coming in higher expectation in our lottery proceeds, this is a timely, consistent funding mechanism that we need to approach. I'll yield for any questions.
Mr. Chairman, this is Representative Carpenter. I have a question.
Yes, sir. You're recognized, Mr. Carpenter.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I got you.
Okay, you mentioned the amount of road mileage in our state parks. That being said, would this monies be available for buildings? We have some Tishomingo State Park is a beautiful park, but some of the buildings are needing much repair. Would this money be available for some buildings, maintenance, or just roads?
No, Bubba, if it's listed in our deferred maintenance program, which our roads and bridges are certainly a component of that, but so are our bathhouses, so are our structures. That's part of our deferred maintenance program. So the challenge we have is that we don't have sufficient resources to address those needs.
That's right.
And this is what we want to. Yeah. This is how we want to approach it.
I appreciate your efforts. This is
any other questions? Title sufficient to pass. Committee sub. All in favor? Any opposed?
Aye.
Motion to reconsider. Comes from the gentleman from Neshoba. Motion table, the motion to reconsider.
Motion table.
Comes from the gentleman from Bolivar.
Yay.
Passes. All right. Thank you. Our next bill is House Bill 382, and once again, a committee sub. And this comes from a culmination of a lot of work this summer. Ladies and gentlemen, we addressed this last year and has to deal with the high fence enclosures for white-tailed deer. We established, I think our goal of our bill last year was to recognize that the testing protocols weren't being followed as we required, and we enhanced the penalty for those that didn't follow those rules. As we've looked at the language in real time, there are some fairly stringent, or in my opinion, too extreme protocols for the high fence operators. So our attempt is to find some happy ground, find some neutral ground that we can all live with in respect to the biology, and understand that CWD is a tremendous issue in our wildlife in our state. And we want to keep that top of the mind. We have some very gifted biologists, very gifted agency members that have given this a lot of work. We also have to recognize that we have an industry that's based around that enclosure and and now that's being used. So this bill comes to me from the gentleman from Neshoba. And we've since gone back and said, we're going to require testing for chronic wasting disease testing and require a minimum submission from inside a high fence enclosure representing at least one deer per 200 acres of that landmass. In addition, the samples submitted from deer harvested, the owner operators submit viable samples collected from any deer that dies in an enclosure from causes other than being harvested by hunting. So in other words, we want to know the mortality of the deer and why they're blood dying. We want to make sure that we don't have CWD around an enclosure, much less in an enclosure. One of the regulations that we imposed last year was we went from from a class 3 violation to a class 1 violation, which was a pretty good step. It was the biggest step we could take. You know, and in that there was, you know, the language about jail. Nobody wants to go to jail. I'm not trying to send anybody to jail. I honestly think that the high fence enclosure operators will follow the rules as we establish them. First of all, my suggestion is the first violation is a $500 fine, and subsequent violations are $1,000 fine. Is there any conversation about any questions about that? The 49.758 in section 4 has been changed. And on line 165, the Commission of Wildlife, Fisheries and Parks shall promulgate the rules and regulations to affect sampling of deer harvested or dying from non-related hunting causes within an enclosure. Obviously, what we hope to do is we hope to develop a live animal test in the future. Right now, that doesn't exist. But we want to follow the best scientific practices. I don't want to overstep and create some heinous testing like depopulation unless that's last resort. But again, these are industries we recognize, but we want to make sure they stay safe and they follow direction. And we've implemented penalties if they don't. And I would entertain any questions. Any questions? Title sufficient do pass. Committee sub. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion to reconsider from the gentleman from Bolivar. Motion to table the motion to reconsider from the gentleman from Neshoba. Thank you. Our next little bill, pretty simple. Comes to us from this is a culmination of years of work by several bodies in the state. You know, the gentleman from Neshoba has given me some language this year, and we have worked on it feverishly. Our foundations worked on it, our agencies worked on it, Nature Conservancy, Ducks Unlimited, a lot of people in this coalition have worked on this. And what I'm going to bring to you today is a conservation bill. It is House Bill 1231. And once again, it's a committee sub. Let's outline what that does. In section 1, it lays out all the definitions, obviously, of the program. What qualifies, what non-governmental entities are eligible. In section 2, it defines what the Mississippi Outdoor Stewardship Trust Fund is. It is a fund that will cap at $20 million. Simply stated, it's a sales tax diversion from a very specific tax code to deal with sporting goods. As you know, those that shop sporting goods in that particular industry are all, for the most part, conservationists. They want their money to go towards that resource, that recreational resource. And so we've identified that we want to try to get that sales tax deferment, put it in a trust fund, stewardship trust fund, cap it at $20 million. The long and the short of it is this will enable entities, both government and non-government entities, conservation groups, 501(c)(3)s, municipalities, cities, obviously parks, the ability to submit grant application for specific projects within the state. And it allows a board to make that decision about, number one, does it qualify? What are the priorities? What are the clawbacks? And ensure that we manage these programs to really cause a positive impact in our nature conservancy in the state. This is a conservation bill, not a wildlife bill. You know, when I talk about this, I really want to emphasize that there are several levels that we use this fund for. Right now, we have the opportunity to gain a lot of federal matching money, but we don't have a source to reach out to create that matching money. For instance, if you've got a farm and you want to plant a cover crop and it takes 50% match money, well, this is where this fund could help that farmer match that money, and all that would go towards, you know, prevent erosion, runoff, help streams, help land and soil conservation, and that would help us apply for federal money to assist that. So my goal is I would like to see $3 million turn to $6 million because we have that farm bill money that's out there. I'm proud to say that yesterday I saw Senator Wicker and Senator Hyde, they renewed their support for the Conservation Funding Protection Act, which is another revenue stream that we have access to if we can create a mechanism for match money funding. So, you know, not only is this for farmers and foresters, this could be used for cities and counties to improve their outdoor recreation. If they want to put in a lake and a walking trail, you know, something as a conservation project, that would certainly qualify. And right now, we don't have that mechanism. You know, there's restoration of wetlands. There's the longleaf pine initiative. And certainly notwithstanding the genesis of this is improving our state parks. I certainly think that some of our park systems have the ability or the necessity to qualify for a grant to get specific projects completed. This is a different mechanism, obviously, but we follow the lead from Georgia. We've seen what Arkansas has done. They've got a different model. Tennessee's got a different model. Obviously, Alabama's been working on it for a number of years. This is Mississippi's opportunity after 2 years of work in this program to develop a stewardship trust fund. I'm really proud of the work that's been put into this. So before I go too far, the increased priority of this project would it'd bring matching funds to the table from federal and non-federal sources. It would improve water quality, improve private land conservation, and contribute to the goals, local, state, regional conservation goals that we establish. Section 3 establishes the Board of Trustees to oversee the fund and the project selection. And this is where we've kind of had to back up a little bit because I want to make sure that we have an independent board and that we're not controlled by agency heads and that we have the right people that are establishing the rules and overseeing these grant opportunities. So, there are some non-voting members on this board. That board would consist of a state forester, ex officio, a non-voting member, director of soil water conservation, non-voting member, DMR, the same way, and agriculture, ex officio, non-voting member. We would have 2 appointees by the governor, 4 appointees by the lieutenant governor, 2 of those coming from the speaker. And that would give the board authority to promulgate the rules and the regulations of how this is administered. Section 5 brings forth the necessary codes for sales tax diversion. And it gives a 3-year build out to get that fund. And it won't be done the first year. and keep this one point, that we want to cap this thing at $20 million. That money's not gonna, anything over the 20 million that's not obligated is going right back to general fund. This money will be maintained at DFA. So there is, we've done this thing, I believe, to be as transparent to everybody as possible. What we wish to provide is an opportunity for us to have the resource to improve our opportunities. I mean, Mississippi is full of great natural resources, and there's federal money out there to help us. We just need a mechanism to help with that matching money. That's what this document does today. I don't see any questions. Are there any questions, gentlemen? I recommend I ask the gentleman from Neshoba. Scott, unmute. Unmute. Working on Larry. You got to unmute? I can't hear you. Unmute.
Step out of his office.
Step in chamber. Come on. Here he comes. While we're waiting on the gentleman from the show, but are there any questions?
If you have a question.
Hey, if you've got questions about everything,
We
come
hear
on.
you now.
I got you.
So I just want to make a few remarks about this. I've been working on this for probably about 2 years, a little over 2 years, starting in early 2018. It's come about.
Here you go. There you go. Chairman. Chairman.
Now, can you hear me? Okay, all right. All right, so this has come about from, I've been working on this for a couple of years, chose not to bring it out in 19, chose not to bring it out last year, just been working on it a whole lot. A lot of states have done this. A lot of them have done it by constitutional amendments. I didn't want to do a constitutional amendment because I think that as we move, if we put this in statute, then we have to have changes to it. It's a lot easier to do it in statute than it is in a constitutional amendment. But I want to talk a little bit about the diversion. So this program will be funded by a diversion from sales tax collecting on sporting goods only. There's an NAISC code that identifies sporting goods. That fund brings in, or that category brings in, according to the Department of Revenue, somewhere between 28 to 30 million dollars a year in revenue to the state, to the general fund. What this does, the diversion does, it would, in the first year after its enactment, it would divert $833,000 a month to this fund. The next year, it would divert $1 million a month, and the third year, it would divert $1.2 million to the fund. Now, as Chairman Kincaid mentioned, it does have a cap of $20 million on it, so anything that's unused in the fund would lapse back into the general fund. But the purpose is to get this money out to your counties, out to your cities, out to these NGOs, these non-government organizations like Ducks Unlimited, people like that. We're not going to divert this money to sit there. We want to put it to use. Okay. We want the money to be put to use back in your areas for things that would benefit your area, wherever it would be. So the board makeup, y'all, we still need to do some work on this. I want to ask you, just let's keep this alive and let's continue to work on this. It's a good concept. It's working in other states. It's not going to have a really detrimental effect on the general fund. I've had conversations with the appropriation and the Ways and Means leadership, and as of now, they're very receptive to what we're trying to do. Okay, and I want to keep it alive. I'd like, we do still need to do some board cleanup. That was probably over my 2 years of working with a lot of these people. The biggest thing that we struggled with was the board, because we want it to be fair. We don't want it to be biased to one agency or anything like that. So we've got to do some work on that. So if y'all would, if I could ask you, ask for your support. Let's keep this alive. Let's try to work it through the process. And I think it's a good piece of legislation. It'll be good for all of Mississippians. Look, saw polling done. There was one poll done in 15, I think one in 18. 85% of the people in the state of Mississippi support an effort like this, to do something like that, to take dollars and put into outdoor stewardship funds or outdoor stewardship projects. And I don't want everybody to think this is all just hunting and fishing. This could be anything. This could be shooting ranges. This could be walking trails. I think the chairman mentioned that there's an opportunity for us to draw down not just federal general dollars, but dollars from Pittman-Robertson Act, matching dollars that the sporting good manufacturers excise taxes they pay. So it seems complex, but it's really not. It's a revenue stream for outdoor activities, outdoor enhancement, outdoor stewardship. Let's try to keep it alive, and I'll be glad to answer any questions, Mr. Chairman.
Wouldn't have any effect on our Pittman-Roberts Act money for sure.
The gentleman from Marion asked if it would have any effect on our Pittman-Robertson Act, and no, it would not, or drawdown. No, in fact, it would be beneficial if we'd be able to leverage some of those funds, right? If there's no other questions, Mr. Chairman, I would recommend title sufficient do pass committee sub.
Thank you, gentlemen. You've heard the motion.
Motion.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
Motion reconsider. Motion reconsider. Table and motion reconsider.
Aye.
Motion passes. Listen, gentlemen, this is double referred, so we're gonna kick it down the hall. We're gonna try to keep this alive. Both House Bill 152 and House Bill 1231. So I really appreciate your support on this. And I'm gonna need you on the floor, so read up. Thank you so much. Rise and report. I guess that went okay.